Welcome to this tutorial on Bridge Over Troubled Water. This is by Paul Simon, and this is actually coming from an arrangement from the Adult Piano Adventures Popular book, book 2. Great arrangement, by the way. So lots to talk about with this piece, but let's just give a listen first. So I'm going to play only one verse, so I'll be going to the second ending and not repeating after, so I won't be doing the first ending, but going straight to the second ending. So here we go. There you have it. All right, so let's kind of start at the very beginning. So with this piece in particular, just kind of analyzing form and how you're going to be playing through the piece. So we start at the beginning, of course. Here's a little repeat sign because when we keep going, here's our first ending. Here's a repeat. So with the words, when you're down and out. So that's our second verse going through. And then instead of playing that verse 1 or ending 1 again, we actually go from 27, 28, skip over to the second ending. And that's how we end the piece. All right. So a lot of you probably know how the song goes. There might be like some little differences or big differences depending on what recording you're used to hearing. So just keeping in mind this is an arrangement, a simplified arrangement. So it might not sound exactly what you're used to hearing, but definitely a good arrangement nonetheless for beginner piano or beginner intermediate. And in this piece, since we're dealing with a pop song, there are these chord symbols that are going with each of these measures. So if we're kind of doing a breakdown of how the bass should go, let's kind of review the chords. So there's a lot of C, a lot of F, the 4 chord, and then a lot of G, which in this piece will be played in a couple different ways. So we could either go down or just G up here. So depending on what's happening in that measure. But for the most part, there's a lot of these chords. So getting really confident with that switch back to back. And in the intro, it actually just does the outer notes, the 5th and the 6th of these chords. So try to see if you can do these without looking down. That's really important because right hand's doing a lot of work with the melody, with the different positions. So you don't want to be focused too much on this left hand to find your way. And you don't have to because it's literally just up a step. So pretty simple. Okay, and of course in this piece, there's a lot of these dotted rhythms to factor in. So, and it's always at the same part of the measure, except for a few spots such as measure 20 and also measure 16, where it happens on the end, or also measure 21 and 24. So all those measures have it at the end of the measure. But let's focus on the ones that are at the beginning of the measure. So if we're looking at the opening, 1 and 2 and we sustain through the bar. And then going to measure 9, for example, 1 and 2 and 1 and 2 and, okay? And then we have that same 5th pattern with the same dotted rhythm at the end of the piece. So with the little outro, measure 26, 2 and 3, 4, measure 28, 1 and 2 and. All right, and yeah, getting comfortable with the ties as well. So we're just holding for the full value of the note. Okay, so now that we've done a breakdown of the left hand, so let's talk about the right hand for a moment. So at the beginning, for the intro, we're going to be starting with treble C position, and then a quick maneuver, 1 and 2 and crossover. So there's a couple things in there to watch out for. F, G, cross, and that'll help you with this next slur. When the words come in, we drop down to C position, 1 and 2 and 3, rest, rest, rest. 2, rest, rest, new position. So by the way, this is F position at measure 8. Thumb extension, back to F. And then for the next part, next slur. So we're in D position, 2, 1, cross. And then the notes are going to keep going down. So the way that these eighth notes are written at measure 13, that would technically be 1 and 2 and. So it kind of extends from left into right for those eighth notes. Back to C position, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. 1 and 2 and 3, 4. All right, so that's a breakdown of the first page. So highly recommend practicing the intro by itself. So that's measure 1 to the beginning of measure 4. And then when the words come in, just kind of keep the chunks really small. So maybe just focusing on when you're weary, just getting used to that rhythm, and then move on. Feeling small. And another good way of practicing actually is, so even if you are focusing on, let's say, measure 6 and 7, I would suggest even practicing the downbeat of the following measure, so measure 8. So 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. So getting to that downbeat specifically with the chord change. Okay, so covering the first page, now we're on to page 2. So this is where we start seeing a bit more what we call accidentals in music. So meaning that there are sharps and flats that are not within the key, but are presented in the music. So we have notes like B flat, F sharp, which is definitely not in the key of C major, which is what this key is in, or this piece is in. D sharp, we have another C sharp, G sharp. So yeah, just really paying attention to those accidentals. Okay, so covering the bass part for measure 16. Coming from the previous measure, we were just in our good old C position. Now here's our 7th for the C7, 4, 3, 2, and then that 2 is going to become a sharp within that same measure. And there's that tie involved. 4, 3, 2, 1, hold. So fingering here, I would suggest at 18, 5, 4, 2, 1, crossover, 2, 1, and then measure 20, 1, F natural. So remember that we came in from an F sharp at 19, but now this is natural. G sharp, A, 3, 2, 1. So that was 21, 22. All right, so all together, where I just stopped, so from 16 to where I just stopped. So let's break down right hand now. So starting at 16, we were coming in from across, over, and now we only have one beat of rest on measure 16 to find the 6th. So kind of keep in mind a little hand stretch as opposed to a 5-finger pattern hand shape. So we're going to extend it just a little bit. So crossover, rest. 1, 3, reach in. So for this rhythm, 2, 3, 4, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1, 2. So here you can do 2, 4 on bridge. That seems to work pretty well. 1, 5, 1, 4, or 2, 3 could also work. But just keep in mind, we're gonna have to shift down for another 6th here. 1, 5, 1, 4. 1, 2, 3. So let's break down that over troubled water. So the thumb, D, D sharp, E. Those are half steps. And then the timing, troubled water. 1, 2, 3, and 4, and. That's how we do that one. And then moving over to 21, kind of having that span of a 6th again from this F here. 1, 2, 4, 1, 5. So that's a thumb extension. A minor position. 2 and 3 and 4 and 1. And then we saw this before, like a bridge over troubled water. So that's actually just a repeat of what you did previously from 19 into 20, or pickups into 19, into 20. And then for this last part, kind of similar to the other I Will Lay Me Down, except the interval is a little different on lay. So before you had a seventh, but now at 25, that's a sixth. And also the rhythm's different. So rest, 2 and 3, 4, 1. So make note of those differences between the first I Will Lay Me Down and the second I Will Lay Me Down. So I would kind of practice this back to back to get used to that difference there. And then for the bass part, going from Like a Bridge, the second Like a Bridge at 22. So before we were coming in from here, big jump to the low C. 4, 3, 2, 1, 2, 3, cross. 3, 2, F natural. And then same as how we did the intro with those types of chords. So C position. So I highly suggest with a pencil marking. So any notes that you take, like just kind of a heads up to reposition your hand to look ahead. I always highly recommend doing that just for like practice efficiency. So yeah, so going from like here into here, so 25, 26, you're coming in from C position. So I would make a note, C position, maybe right in between the measures, just as a heads up. And then something like this, where you have a really big jump. So I would write maybe low C there, or low C right in between, just as a heads up. So little things like that. Anytime you have rests, like here, for example, maybe you could write, oh, seventh is coming up, right? So keeping that C. So yeah, highly suggest writing those in when you can. Okay, so let's go to the outro now. So this is starting at 26. 5, 3. Same as what you did before in the opening, in the intro. 1 and 2 and 3, 4. So this would be first ending when you're, so that's exactly the same as the top of the piece. But let's talk about the second ending. So if we're coming in from 27, 1 and 2 and 3, 4, second ending, rest to find that low C. So again, 1 and 2 and 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. And I know it doesn't say to slow down at all, but I find that's kind of a nice way to end the piece, is to do a little ritardando or rit, kind of roughly around here. Or you could start it even just a tad bit earlier too, whatever you feel. As the performer, what would you like to do? So you could do it here, you could do it somewhere around here, or no rit at all, and just keep it all the same tempo all throughout. All right, and then last thing to consider, once you're really comfortable with the position changes, all the different chords and the accidentals, there's a lot packed in this piece, factoring in the pedal. So for me personally, I don't know if I would necessarily do all the pedaling exactly that's written in this arrangement. So again, personal taste. If you kind of prefer like a bit more dry. Or if you like the sound of the pedal. That's totally your call. Just there are a few spots where there's like multiple pedalings back to back. So like where I just ended actually at measure 8. Pedal, pedal, pedal. And then there are definitely instances where in the arrangement, they really don't want the pedal. Like, dry them all. So this is at measure 11. Because if we do add the pedal, it gets super muddy. So definitely don't want that. And then another instance, I mean, there's definitely more, but for example, like a bridge at 22. So that doesn't have any pedal. Because if we did with pedal, that would sound pretty muddy and gross. So they decided not to put that in there. So again, up to you. Or the other option could be maybe not doing pedal for the whole piece and maybe just saving it for the end, or just doing pedal on the intro. And then when you get to the outro. So really your call, totally up to you. Hope you found this video helpful while tackling this really awesome piece, Bridge Over Troubled Water. Very popular piece, and this arrangement is such a nice and pleasant arrangement, especially for beginner/intermediate students who want to play some cool pop songs, aside from learning just technical exercises and more classical repertoire. So hope you enjoyed the video.